Hello, everyone, and welcome inside the Carmelo Anthony Center here at Syracuse University. Josh Solomon of CitrusTV, one of your women's basketball beat reporters, and I'm sitting here with one of the assistant coaches of the women's basketball team, Khyreed Carter. First of all, Coach Carter, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here and do this with you today.
So let's just start out because I want to know a little bit more about you, as does everyone watching. Let's just get into kind of your coaching tenure, when you started, and how you moved up the ranks over here at Syracuse now.
Yeah, absolutely. This is my 8th year as an assistant coach. I started out 2 years as a graduate assistant at Michigan State, and from Michigan State I transitioned over to Buffalo with Coach Jack. With Coach Jack for 5 years at Buffalo, and then we made that jump over here. So now we're in year 3, trying to continue to have success and continue to build it up.
And now I'll go back even further. So maybe I should have started out with this one of childhood and kind of growing up around the sport of basketball. Just kind of give me that a little bit. Were you more of a player? Were you always kind of interested in the coaching side? And if you did grow up a player, when did that transition happen where maybe you went from, I have the mind of I'm going to be that NBA talent to, maybe this isn't the best fit for me, let's try coaching?
Yeah, I grew up playing basketball. Was actually my last sport. I did football, I did baseball and soccer all before I picked up basketball. And then once I got in basketball, I just kind of was hooked to it. So I kind of grew up around the game. My uncles played. My dad was big in the game. He used to work at Madison Square Garden, so I used to go up there and watch Knicks games all the time. And then growing up through high school, I played as well. And then I went to college. My first year, I went to Southern Illinois. I went and I was going to walk on to the team there, and then I got hurt my freshman year. Wanted to get out of the school, left, and transferred to Michigan State. And they allowed me to work with the teams there. I worked with the men's team and the women's team, and I kind of got to see the behind the scenes. I always wanted to be at the highest level. I had opportunities to play D2 and D3 basketball, but I wanted to see the highest and the best of the best. And while I was there, I got really involved with the teams, and I actually thought I was going to be doing what you're doing. I was a journalism major, and I got to my last semester of senior year, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, this is not what I want to do. And I was fortunate enough that the work I was doing with the teams, Coach Susie Merchant offered me a graduate assistant spot. So once she offered me that, I knew I needed time to figure out what I wanted to do with life. And during those 2 years of doing that, I really developed a love for the coaching side of it. And since then, we've really hit the ground running and haven't looked back since.
So speaking of that coaching side, and already you've mentioned how many years you spent with Coach Jack. Mm-hmm. What does she bring to the table? You know, what would you say about Coach Jack, and how do you think she helps you as a head coach?
She's one of one. Like, her energy is the most infectious energy I've ever experienced in my life. She's extremely authentic and real, and that's what we really appreciate. And it makes it easy to work for her because you know that regardless, it can be the things you don't want to hear, but it's what you need to hear. And she's not going to sugarcoat it. She's going to tell you what you need to hear. She's allowed me to grow. I came in as a 24-year-old kid when I first started working for her. And now as I've continued to grow and continued to mature, she's given me more and more responsibilities and more control of how we can grow this thing. And she's really allowed me to continue to grow. And it's been a wonderful transition. As I mature into my adult life. But she's one of a kind. My very first time I met her, I came up for an interview at Buffalo, and my flight got canceled. And most people, they're like, I'll go put you in a hotel near the airport. She opened up her home to me, gave me clothes because I flew in with a suit, looked very similar to what you look like today. And she opened up her home, gave me clothes, and said, you're more than welcome to stay here if you want. And I went upstairs and I called my dad and I said, yeah, I'm going to take this job. And it's been 8 years later, and we've had a lot of success since.
I want to ask a little bit more about that and her relationship with players because, she's mentioned to us when she talks to us that, some players maybe even sometimes may overstay themselves. At her home, she opens it up to them to build that relationship and go over film. And she also mentioned that you were a big part of that. You're sending players their film, or you're sending other film of other players that you think this is your potential. Kind of go a little bit into more about that and what you see in players.
I think this game is all about growth, and we get these kids right now at a time when they're really trying to figure themselves out, trying to figure out the next stages of their life. And we have 4 years, most of them. You know, we got lucky to have Deasia for 5, but for most of them, we get 4 years. And every moment that we have with them, we want to make sure they continue to grow and continue to take leaps. And I'm an avid film watcher. I watch a lot of film. And I like our players to see what they do well. Oftentimes in film, we're constantly critiquing what didn't go well, what we need to work on. I need them to see them in their optimum. I need them to see what they can possibly become, you know, so that way they can take bits and pieces. So now when I do come with the truth and what we need to get better at, it's a little bit more well received because the relationship is there from them seeing themselves in a positive light as well.
What would you say if I were to ask you, you know, I'm sure you've seen the videos since you watch a lot of film, you know, most of that's on YouTube, or some of that might be on YouTube. There's also those day in the life videos. So give me that day in the life of Coach Carter. What are you doing around the building? Obviously, I know you're the recruiting coordinator as well. So how does that day-to-day operations
Yeah,
work?
day-to-day, it depends. Usually we're practicing right now in the morning. So I get up. I like to wake my kids up. I got 3 daughters, so I like to wake them up so they can see me before I get out, make them breakfast. And then once I get here to the building, usually our players are already on the court, so I like to get in and get some shots up with usually the guards. That's typically who I work with. Get in with the guards, get some shots up before practice. Then we'll do film as a staff and as a team. After we get through with that, we'll practice. After practice, I like to get some shots up with them afterwards as well. And then it's all film. I like to really break down practices. During the year, it gets a little bit more monotonous because we're breaking down other teams as well. But I like to see what we kind of were working on in the scout and practice so that I know what can possibly hurt us in the game. And then I'll spend a couple hours watching film, breaking it down. And then I like to sneak a workout in here and there when I can really get it in. And then, you know, I like to keep work here. That way when I get home, I have time to spend time with my family and be there. So sometimes it's long hours, but I really like to, you know, soak up as much as I can while I'm here. A lot of meetings with Coach, just going over game plan, figuring out how we're going to beat the team that we're playing, what worked well in the last game, what didn't. You know, but a lot of meetings. That's typically what a day looks like, and then we go to sleep, wake up, and do it all again the next day.
Talking more specifically about the guards, excuse me, because I know you did that at Buffalo as well, working with them.
Mm-hmm.
What attributes do you look for not only with the players here, but also when recruiting players, you know, looking at other players from other universities that play the guard position? Like, what are the main qualities of a guard that you're like, okay, that's someone's, like, that person's special?
I think number one is competitiveness. Like a guard that is willing to do whatever it takes to win is somebody that can play for Coach Jack. Like, for me, my job is to elevate the head coach, and she has a type of player that plays extremely well for her. So when I'm out recruiting or I'm looking at a kid, first things first, they have to be competitive and passionate because that's who she is. That's who Coach is. And if she has a guard that can do that, that makes it, you know, that much easier for her to coach them up. You know, we like scoring. We like guards that can create off the bounce and, you know, really makes plays happen. We don't like one-dimensional kids. We like kids that can do a little bit of everything. But defense. Kids that are willing to play defense, pick up full court, pressure the ball. We want to pressure and create turnovers so that we can get out and run. But honestly, it's more competitiveness and a joy for playing. If you enjoy playing, you can play for us. And if you really want to lace them up and get out here and compete at a high level, we'll find a way to get you on the floor. And we have a very good group of guards. We've been young this year, but they're really starting to get it and grow into their own right now.
You mentioned a little bit ago, too, about kind of growing through your role as being a coach. Mm-hmm. And through that time, you've also watched how NIL has been really effective. So I know, you know, it might not necessarily, like, be something that affects you directly, but just with, you know, recruiting and dealing with players that are going through that process, just kind of what has been the deal since NIL has really been to the main stage?
It's really changed the game. It's about time. You know, I was a couple years late or too early, I would say, to really capitalize on the opportunities, but they have opportunities to let it be known. And everybody thinks about it, the money that they're able to get. For me, what I think is most important is that these kids have a platform. And so, for example, like Dominique Camp on our team, she has a clothing brand that she's coming out with. It gives our players something outside of the sport to do to capitalize on who they are and what they mean to this community. It also gives them more access to the community. People get out there and see them. One of the things with NIL, they have to do a lot more community service. So to get the community around them and for them to increase their visibility, I think is extremely important, especially in this market, in this area right here, for people to see our women's basketball players out there. I think there's nothing better than that. But I think the best part of NIL is allowing kids to capitalize on something that may be a hidden talent or something that they have a secret passion about that they couldn't do in the past. And for like kids like Dominique Cam to be able to do a clothing line or run camps or give back to their communities that they're in, I think that's the best part of NIL so far.
Going into the guards now here at school, you were able to watch last year something pretty special with the Age of Air and at Buffalo too. Same thing with Georgia Woolley. You mentioned Dominique Camp, Sophie Burrows, who scored a career high just a week ago against Virginia Tech. What is it like working with these really great players, on the day-to-day?
Oh man, they make me look good, don't they? They're awesome, and each one is so different. And watching, like you mentioned, Sophie Burrows, watching her continue to grow into her game. Last year I sat at the ACC tip-off and I told the world, I told them that we had Sophie Burrows on our team, and we saw in the UConn game last year, and that was kind of her breakout game and her ability to show what she can possibly be. And now for her to do it consistently, like if we really look, her last 5 or 6 games, she's really taken that next step and really grown into that. For me, that's what it's all about. I spend countless hours with them and watch them, put the work in, and for them to really gain that confidence in themselves that they can do it. I mean, she's putting the ball on the floor. She's creating off the dribble. She's rebounding. She's really starting to step into that role. And watching Georgia, the consistency that Georgia's had for 4 years to really play at this level and be competitive, that's what it's all about for me, is just watching them continue to take steps in their maturity, take steps in their game, and then ultimately when the lights come on, to shine. And I think Sophie Burrows has done a great job of that. Dominique Camp had a double-double a game ago. Like, that for me is more rewarding than anything else, is just watching them grow into who they're becoming.
Building off of that, not only for the guards, but for this team as a whole, for the rest of this season and maybe even into next year, what are you looking to see from this team?
Us continue to get better. I think right now we're starting to play a little bit better basketball, locking in on the defensive end. I just want them to continue to take shots and be confident, understand that their role is important, whether it's the 3 minutes that you play or the 10 minutes that you get. Be impactful in the minutes that you have. And if our players continue to lock into that, we're going to be very successful. I mean, you look at a kid like Olivia Schmidt at the Clemson game. She didn't play a minute for 30 minutes, but we needed her in that fourth quarter, and she was ready. And for us, we always say, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And for our kids to be locked in and ready to make plays and to help us win, I think that's what I'm looking forward to as we continue to go through this season, because each game is somebody different. Like, we've been counting on Sophie and Georgia and Kyra to do their thing, but each game somebody different shows up and steps up and makes plays. And if we continue to do that, we're going to be very dangerous going into March to make a run at the ACC tournament.
Just a couple more for you, Coach. The first one being, when we asked Coach Jack about your future and talking about the men's basketball side a little bit, she was saying that your best is when you're coaching women's basketball. What would you say that makes this game so special?
I think on the men's side, athleticism really takes over, right? On the women's side, you have to be effective and disciplined in your movements. You have to be a little bit more skilled in order to be, which made Deasia so good, because she was extremely skilled. It's a more pure game, in my opinion. I've seen both sides of it. It's a little bit more pure because you can't really get away with athleticism taking over. You got to be, one, cohesive, and you also have to have kids that are willing to buy into a system more than anything else. It's a beautiful game, and it's really taken off. And Caitlin Clark was phenomenal for our game, and Juju Watkins and Hannah Hidalgo with what they're doing. And I want them to continue to grow the game as it continues to get more followers and more views.
And then finally, Coach Jack said that she's going to try and hold on to you and keep you here as long as she can, but she knows that there's a head coaching opportunity soon. What would you say? Would you like to be, eventually running the show of a team in the future?
She has the saying, be where your feet are, and I'm locked into the goals and the missions that we have. We came here with the idea of putting a national championship banner up there. They've already put a Final Four banner up here. There's still some work to do here. Ultimately, down the line, you know, everyone talks about short term and your 3-year, 5-year plan. Hopefully down the road there's an opportunity for me, but I'm not actively out here searching for that. We got a lot of work to do here, even in this season, to continue to build it up. If the right opportunity comes, I'm definitely interested in listening. But for right now, I'm always where my feet are. We got some work to do, and we got a national championship that we got to go get at some point.
Coach Carter, thank you so much for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me.